Just friends, Alireza Firouzja just showed the world how to take down a world championship contender. In this game, Alireza Firouzja takes on the Bulgarian brute Veselin Topalov, a giant in Bulgarian chess, a giant in world chess. You know, the young Iranian currently residing in France takes on this formidable opponent, and let's see how he demolished him. Firouzja starts with e4, Topalov goes with e5, knight to f3, knight to c6, and bishop to c4. So, the player representing France is playing the Italian game, and it happens to be one of his favorite lines. So, knight to f6, we have d3 and h6. h6 probably then to also just stop any ideas of bishop to g5. c3, ready to strike in the center, preparing that, and g5. A surprise move by Topalov. I keep almost saying Kramnik by Topalov. And here, Topalov is playing this g5 move to tell Firouzja, hey man, I'm going to try and hit your knight on g4, get some space down the flank here, and if you castle short, that could be dangerous for you. So let's see if Firouzja will castle short even. Maybe he does late in the game, maybe not. But this is definitely an intention that Topalov is setting to say, look here, man, I'm going to attack you full out. I'm not going to take any chance by playing the safe. So the only chance I'm taking is by going all out. So Firouzja, being dynamic, this leaves that let Topalov say, okay, you can take, yeah, you can go g4 if you like, but I'm going to strike in the center. Pavlov correctly takes, and yes, you could capture back, but Firouzja playing in a typical attacking aggressive nature, very uh, similar to a setup we'd find maybe in a Evans gambit, goes e5. We get d5 then, very thematic as well, and you could ampersand here, but Firouzja goes bishop to b5. Bishop to b5 does two things. It hits the knight on c6, and it stops the knight from taking or adding more pressure on the e5 pawn. We get knight to e4, also very thematic, this type of setup now, in a lot of Italian setups. So we get castles here by Firouzja. So Firuza saying, look, man, you can come with your ideas here on this flank. Not a problem at all. If you do that, that's fine. Let's say you try for, let's say now you go g4. You think it's doing a lot of damage. Not really. You're just taking this pawn for free. Then you'd have to go bishop d7, and of course you could just take here. If you take with the b pawn, you just drop your bishop back to d3, and you enjoy being upper pawn. Well, not upper pawn, but positionally you upper pawn. Because now the knight would then most likely have to drop back, let's say maybe knight to c5, which is a square that Topalov places his knight on later in the game. Let's see how that went. So, instead of all this g4 business, Topalov plays the thematic d3, giving the pawn back and also forcing Firouzja to move his queen. Right, knight to c5 is then played as mentioned, and uh, Firouzja drops to c2. Here we get bishop to g7. Now bishop to g7 is trying to do two things. Trying to hit this pawn on e5 like that. Obviously not right now, but also maybe trying to castle short. But here's something we need to notice, guys. If Topalov castles short, we notice here this queen on this b1 h7 diagonal. And you could argue that the light squares around the king here is a bit weak. This pawn seems a bit overextended, especially if you're going to castle short. And maybe this could be a diagonal that white could penetrate here and do a lot of damage with the queen. Will it be? Let's find out. Bishop to g7 then, we get bishop to e3, very direct threat by Alireza, attacking this knight on c5. The knight drops to e6 and c4 by Firouzja. So here Firouzja is trying to tell Veselin, look man, break the tension, because you can see my plan is to take on d5 and pin both your knights. So you should break the tension, right? Logically, you should. But what he should do here, black, is just castle. Let Alireza take here, and the queen takes, and the game continues, right? So optically, it seems yes, the next natural move is knight to c3. White is slightly better, yes. The queen will just drop back, maybe, right? You could argue maybe, or maybe you place a knight here, you know. But let's say the queen goes to d8. Okay, it's actually very bad now because then rook to d1 comes, right? Or let's say after knight to c3, the engine is suggesting knight c to d4. So very tricky stuff to find here, yeah? Um, it's understandable why Veselin um, would not castle here because also it gives white a lot of space. So instead, Veselin captures. But believe it or not, guys, that seems to be one of the big mistake losing moves. The reason why is because now rook d1 still comes anyway. Just remember in the last line it was knight c3 and rook ac1. But now rook d1 does two things. Firstly, the rook's taking over this open d file, which is a great thing for the rook, no matter what position, most positions, right? If you can get your rook on an open d file or open file, period, that is great. Secondly, it's attacking the queen. So it's coming with a tempi. So black now will always find himself lagging because he's lacking in space. Look how cramped his position is. And he's behind in time, which is tempi. So from here on out, we'll see how black responds. He responds correctly here with going bishop to d7, obviously then breaking the pawn here, or the attack on the queen. And now knight to c3. Alireza's moves are flowing much more easy and logical. Here, Topalov castles, and now we get bishop takes on c6 and b takes c6. Of course, you cannot go here because you would just end up losing your queen. But now you have to take with this pawn, and you have tripled pawns. Not a very pretty sight, hey? If this was just a pawn endgame, you could argue it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 versus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pawns, which would obviously most likely be winning for white. All you'd have to do with your king is run it up the board, gobble, 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 and it is living happily ever after for you. But obviously, we still have a lot of pieces on the board and they are very heavy pieces. So let's see how white makes light work of it all. We get knight to e4 then and g4. So here, um, Topalov probably thought, okay, I'm kicking this knight away and maybe I can then just snatch this pawn. So if you go knight e1, for instance, suddenly the trouble is sort of quelled a bit, right? So you'd be able to do bishop takes e5. But now he must have missed this because after g4, Firouzja has this stunning bishop takes on h6. And what this does is, of course, if you go bishop takes on h6 here, the simple knight to f6 would win you the game because if you go king h8, for instance, it's just a checkmate in one. See there, that queen on that b1 h7 diagonal coming into play. Queen to h7 would be mate. If you go king to g7, the same story. Queen to h7 is mate. So you would have to give up the queen. Queen takes f6 and e takes f6, and the game is very much over. You could obviously go here if you wanted to, but not going to help much. You just pick up that bishop too on d7. So this is why Firouzja went bishop takes on h6. Yes, he's giving up a piece temporarily if you take here, but he's going for it all, right? You'd have to give up your queen. Plus the knight, the bishop will also be attacked after the queen goes to f6 because what else is defending that bishop from this rook on d1? All right. So bishop takes h6 and Topalov goes f5, trying to prolong, but Firouzja says, nope, I'm just going to en passant. And now you're asking, what do you really do? Bishop takes h6. Yes, it stops this f6 idea, knight takes f6, but look at this, knight e g5, guys. And guess what? It was in this position on move 20 that the legendary Veselin Topalov resigned the game. The reason why is simple. Knight e to g5, yes, does give up a piece temporarily, like this. But the thing is, the knight moving away is making space on this diagonal for the queen to get either to h7 or g6. So, knight there, let's say knight takes, there's a mate coming in 3 with queen to g6. Look there, king to h8, queen takes, and king there, and queen g7, mate. So this is the how sneaky this queen on c2 really is, how it takes over this diagonal. Look how cramped black's pieces are. Nothing really going on here. So Firouzja really, really brilliant knight e to g5. What do you really do? You can go rook to f6, of course, if you wanted to. But it's simple after this. King to h7, queen to h7, king to f8, and you just go rook takes on d7. Remember here, the queen joined the attack from this way, picking up this material here. If you have to give up the queen here to stay alive a bit longer. And of course, from there on out, the position plays itself. You can do this, of course, but this is too easy. White would win this in their sleep. So yeah, guys, I hope you enjoyed the game, and it just goes to show you that sometimes even the top grandmasters can make errors in the opening going into the early model game. If you guys found this game insightful, please do consider hitting that like, comment, and sub button. It will mean a lot for the channel. And yeah, I'll see you guys very soon for the next video. Take care and have a great day ahead. Bye.